Reginald Walker joins us. Sir, welcome.
Thank you, Steve. And I got to give you credit. You get through and I can't say it like you do, but the tree surgeon sponsor, you nail that every time. I don't know how you do it.
Well, that's my guy. He gets it done. He gets it done. That is my guy. All right. So, how many times during your esteemed Penn State career did you hear somebody say, we won't learn anything about our team really until they face adversity on the road? Did you ever hear that, Reginald?
Yeah, I heard it every offseason, every fall camp, every year. I mean, if you didn't, you weren't listening to Coach P.
Yeah. So, is it safe to say there was a lot to learn in how they handled adversity last night?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, look, we all know, and you and I have talked about this, right? At the end of, particularly the end of last season, Sean Clifford was a guy that even a little bit of carryover, even during that pandemic shortened season. He was up and down and inconsistent, and there was, you kind of wondered what was going on. And obviously you remember last year he got beat up a little bit and took a hit in that Iowa game. And after that, I don't know that he was really the same. I mean, he played well against Michigan State, but I don't know that he was really the same after that. And you wondered, I know I did, I kind of wondered where his confidence level was by the time this game started, right? Where was he going to be? And did he look great the entire game? No. But did I expect him to be perfect? Absolutely not. I think that's unfair. But what I did see was a guy that the moment didn't get too big for him. He looked confident. His experience was key for this team late. He stayed calm. He stayed collected. He made the right throws on that last drive to get this team over the hump and take the lead and then give it back to the defense who closed the show.
The last 5 possessions of the game for Purdue, they had 3 3-and-outs, a 5-and-out, and a 6-and-out where they went nowhere with it. It looked like Manny Diaz tightened up a lot of the windows for Aiden O'Connell to operate. Did you see the same thing?
Yes, I did, and I'm going to tell you why. I think he figured something out, and I don't mean this in a bad way toward Manny because I think he's a good coach. I think what he figured out, and sometimes as coaches you can have players and you think you know certain things, but until the moment happens, you're not sure. And I think what he figured out midway probably through the third quarter was, you know what? I got Joey Porter Jr. over there,
cool,
and he's okay. So I can do some other things on the other side of the field because he can handle himself by himself. And when you get a coach that figures that out in a key moment, right? And here's an example I want to use. It's a little bit different, but here's the same example. If you think back to last Saturday, Nebraska Northwestern.
Mm-hmm.
Northwestern did not blitz at all until the fourth quarter.
Right.
And then all of a sudden here they come because they realized and they trusted, yes, our guys gave up some plays, but if we play a shell on the top, we can keep enough in front of us. And if we get after the quarterback, he can't make those plays. So I think what Manny Diaz figured out was Joey Porter Jr. can do his job. Not that other guys can't, but he's an elite level talent, right? And so I can do some other things with coverages that shows that I trust Joey, and I can heat Aiden O'Connell up and make it a little more difficult for him to feel comfortable. And that's how they found a way to win down the stretch.
Yeah, because Hardy made a couple big plays in there. King made a play. Ellis was close to getting a pick. I'm telling you, I felt like there were a couple times that Curtis Jacobs was close to getting something, that got almost like went flying by his hand last night. Then on offense, in the first half, they actually had some semblance of success running the ball. Do you think they got a chance to get this running game going just based on the snippets you saw last night?
Here's what I'll tell you. Simple answer, yes. Concern with even my answer is they got to find a bell cow. I mean,
sure.
Listen,
Yeah.
I like Lee. I like Allen. Singleton is a stud as well. And Cliff's going to run it some too. Obviously, that's part of the offense.
Sure.
But I don't know, and I know we're in an era to where if you don't play kids a certain amount, and they're counting, maybe not necessarily our guys, but in general, players sometimes maybe count how many carries they get versus the other guy, or how many times they get, reps as a quarterback, how many throws, whatever the case may be. And it's hard to keep guys together when there's that kind of sort of, I don't want to call it a battle, but desire to kind of be the guy. But at some point, you got to sit guys down and say, listen, this is the pecking order, and this is just what it's going to be. I think all of these backs are talented, but they're more talented than less than 4 yards a carry apiece. And I think part of that is you got to let them get worked up, get lathered into it. That's what backs do. Over time, they wear you down. Yeah. I don't know what the exact answer is, but I think they've got to find somebody that's going to carry the mail for this team running the football. You oftentimes when you get 10, 11, 12, 15 carries, that 16th carry is the 35-yarder or the 65-yarder. Sure. If you never get to that point and your eyes, you start to see everything the right way and your eyes find holes even faster, it takes time to work into that. And I'm concerned right now with this running game that they're not going to give anybody a chance to get to that level and be as explosive as possible.
Is there another element to this, though, that it is game one, and even for the coaches, it's a feeling out process?
Yes, and the fact that people can say what they want. You're on the road to start the season in a conference game with no preseason. You've been hitting no one but your own players for a month, and you can't really hit them hard because you got to watch out for injuries. So it's the first game, and that's why coaches, especially this rings more true to me in college than it does in the NFL. That old adage of you get better from week 1 to week 2 or first game to second game, it rings true in college football because you don't really know where your holes are until you play somebody with a jersey that's a different color than yours.
Yeah. No, exactly. I mean, college football is so different than any other sport because they've held off on doing a playoff. They hold off on doing other things. They start the season without any preseason. Every other sport has a preseason. College football just starts. It's just different than anything else. That's the only reason I don't like opening with a conference game, because I don't think it makes sense for the conference to do that to their teams.
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's exactly what I was thinking about. And I was getting ready to say I'd love to have that conversation off the record with James Franklin and a lot of other coaches, because I think, yes, for some of them, they'll probably tell you, hey, we'll play whoever, right? That's the easy answer. But to me, the positive to playing a conference, because I agree with what you said, the negative of it is, but the positive to playing a conference game is that month leading up to that first game, which is a conference game, there's a lot more focus than if you're playing a directional state opponent, right? If you're playing an FCS school, I respect that level because I did a Gardner-Webb FCS level game last night.
Right.
But when you're playing those types of teams that you're expected to beat in week 1, oftentimes the preparation isn't what it should be for the players, and it's harder for the coaches to get them to understand how important it is that they be prepared to play really well from the word go on the first snap. And so that's where the positive of it is. But to your point, the negative is whoever loses that game is immediately behind the 8 ball,
exactly,
whether they have their best or not.
Yeah, exactly. And that's where Purdue is today. Now, they're in the West, and I think in the West you can navigate a game like that because you're going to have other opportunities. When you're in the East, it's a mandatory. You got to keep winning because of the neighborhood you're in. So when you take it, I always refer to week 1 as overreaction weekend.
Yep.
Because it's the only thing we have to evaluate. Mm-hmm. Right? So there's no real context to it yet. So I just feel like on week 1, you're kind of going on the fly. As a coach, though, I think James Franklin got invaluable video last night, pro and con. What about your thoughts?
Absolutely. Anytime you've got enough tape, because he's got enough tape to basically at some point chew out every particular position unit. But he's also got some good tape to pat every unit on the back.
Yes, yeah, that's right.
And that's key. And now you've got basically 10 days or 9 days essentially to prepare for Ohio. Home game. You're probably going to get an opportunity to get some more freshmen some opportunities, right? So you look at a guy like Drew, right, who got in the game last night.
I thought
now all of a sudden he did look good. And in theory, if this football team does what it's supposed to do, he should play a lot against Ohio. Right. And you want that. And then maybe not so much at Auburn. We'll see how that turns out. And then he should theoretically play a lot against Central Michigan. So all of a sudden now, if something were to happen to Sean Clifford, which we've seen it happen multiple times over the last couple of years, he's going to be prepared to play in terms of Drew. And in theory, you're going to see more guys get more opportunities and start to figure out what this sort of pecking order looks like. But getting back to your point, yes, there is a lot to teach from. There is a lot to work off of. And the other thing is you're teaching against, to an extent, for the most part, a lot of guys that are like level competition, right?
Yeah.
Purdue, from a defensive standpoint and athletic standpoint, they're not that different than Northwestern. They're not that different than Minnesota.
Right.
They're not that different than Indiana or Rutgers or Maryland, right? Ohio State is another level, as we know. Michigan, another level, as we know. Michigan State in that category potentially as well, maybe a step under that. And Penn State, we're going to figure out where they are as they play those games. But the good thing about it is you have now been able to send a message to your team, even after a win, on the road. And that's another thing. It is hard to win on the road. The good thing for Penn State is, yes, from a conference standpoint, they've only got 3 more road games, right? They got to go to Auburn, non-conference, but now you only got to go on the road 3 more times.
Yeah.
And so that's got to add to the confidence level of this football team, because now you know you can go on the road in the conference and win, and that's going to be important.
And look, it's the opening game. You overcame mistakes, fought adversity on the road, because everybody wasn't loving you as you're on the 20-yard line with 2:33 to play. Okay, the crowd's not exactly rooting for you, and they made plays. I mean, I give them credit, and then the last 5 defensive possession sequences were outstanding because they gave up nothing.
And that's the key, right? And that's where James said when he brought in Manny Diaz, he wanted somebody to come in and be a head coach on that side of the football.
Yep.
And that's what Manny brings. That's what he was. He was a head coach. Regardless of the level of success, he was a head coach. And now he's only got to worry about half the football game. Well, third, I should say. Let me say a third, because all 3 phases are important. Yep. But now he only has to worry about a third of the football game.
Yeah.
He can coach his guys up in between. I think that's going to be invaluable. But it also, I think, those drives down the stretch of the game, that right there, to me, Steve, is what Manny can use to infuse confidence in his guys defensively, that they can trust him as a coordinator. Yeah. Because what he called down the stretch, it worked. And for a lot of kids, they just need to know that it works, and then they'll trust it.
Because for him, it's a learning curve on what his people can and can't do. Mm-hmm. He's seen it in practice, but this was the first time he had to do it in practical application. And I thought that, to me, it showed his ability to adjust in that fourth quarter, his ability to adjust. Okay, now I kind of have a feel as to how my personnel can play and what can be effective, and he did it.
And that's what it comes down to. And now, right, because I don't care who you are, head coach, coordinator, even a position coach, it takes a player to see the success to trust it fully. They'll buy in, right? Oh, we've heard that term, the buy-in. Oh, yeah, it all sounds great. Until they see the success happen, they ain't fully bought in. You could say it all day. They ain't fully bought in until the success happens. That's just the truth and the reality of the matter.
My friend, thanks so much. It's great to hear you. What's your next game?
Tonight, I'll be on ESPN 3 as the Charlotte 49ers host William & Mary, 7 o'clock kick.
Very nice. Hey, have a great game tonight. I know you will.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.